quickly. To address the audio, the neighbors are cutting down a tree. To address any future falling trees through the ceiling, the neighbors are cutting down a tree. Hey guys, it's Sarah from Just My Typewriter, and I'm here again with Diamond. Oh my god, you can't have coffee. You're not old enough yet. I get asked pretty often for repair advice, both in the comments on the videos on this YouTube channel and on my Instagram, just.my.typewriter. But the truth is, I am not a qualified repair tech professional. In fact, almost all of my successful repairs have come from a lot of faith, trust, a little bit of pixie dust, and a lot of Googling. But there are some things I've learned over the years that I've found to be incredibly helpful when it comes to typewriter repair. One of those things actually has to do with repairing electric typewriters. Now, electric typewriters can be incredibly intimidating to me. I think they can be great when you're using them for a longer piece of writing. I've done lots of tests on this channel between electrics and manual typewriters. They're easier to type on. I feel like I can last a lot longer on them because I don't have to have as much finger strength. I also feel like I type properly on an electric typewriter, which is something I get comments about a lot on the manual typewriters. But electric typewriters have a lot more components in them than a traditional manual typewriter. And there's a lot that can go wrong in an electric typewriter. Now, many repair techs will look at an electric typewriter and go, it's from the 80s, probably not worth fixing. And that can be true. Little things like capacitors or little engines or motors, or I don't know where the magic electricity comes from, but anything that does that can go wrong in a typewriter over time. If they're sat somewhere for a really long time, if they're old, if they've been in water, if they've been dropped, a lot of stuff can go wrong. One thing that I've noticed that goes wrong pretty frequently on electric typewriters is actually this piece called the drive belt. Now, I ran into my first drive belt when I was repairing my Olympia electric typewriter. Now, I got this typewriter in a combo Facebook Marketplace post. I got a super speed from the 1940s, a typewriter stand, and a broken electric typewriter. I fixed and sold the super speed, I sold the typewriter stand, and then I was stuck with this broken Olympia typewriter. The first thing I did with this Olympia typewriter was actually open it up. I had to remove the screws on the bottom of the typewriter and just see what was on the inside. I didn't know if it was broken because it needed cleaned, if there was something that exploded inside of it. I had no idea what I was dealing with. But once I took the bottom off of that typewriter, I was actually able to see the internal mechanisms of the machine, and I noticed that the thing that seemed to be the most wrong was that there was this rubber piece, like a rubber band, wrapped around the motor of the machine and a little wheel off to the side that had been snapped. Now, this piece is called the drive belt, and the drive belt actually helps move the entire machine and cycle it through. And these are made out of rubber, and they can corrode over time or snap over time, and they're the thing that runs the whole machine. If you don't have a drive belt, you don't have an electric typewriter. Now, I looked at the machine, I cleaned it up a little bit, and I said, that's the only thing wrong with it. I wonder what I could do to replace that. I Googled it because I didn't know, and I have a master's degree in how to Google things, and what I found was that people have actually used O-rings or rubber seals to help replace drive belts in typewriters because they're not making specific drive belts for typewriters anymore. So I went onto Amazon and I tried to measure the circumference or diameter of that rubber piece inside the typewriter and kind of guessed on an O-ring, and I ordered a set of O-rings in that size. Now, when I got them, they were the right thickness, but they were the wrong size, so I decided to go on Amazon again and order a size down. Now, this drive belt fit perfectly around the two little spools I had to fit it inside the machine. Once I had it properly attached and around those two spools, the typewriter suddenly worked. It turned on, all the keys moved, everything worked perfectly. I had fixed an electric typewriter. Hi. I filed that in the back of my brain, and anytime somebody asked me for repair advice on an electric typewriter, I did offer that as one of the first things you can check. See if your drive belt has gone bad. And then this last year, I got another electric typewriter that wasn't working. I don't know why people want to give me broken typewriters. It seems to be their favorite gift for me. So my sister actually picked up 2 typewriters for me. Both of them were broken as my Christmas present. I had a Royal Safari 2, which is a later model, and I don't know how I fixed it. I kind of stabbed it a lot with a screwdriver until it worked. And the second was this Royal Aristocrat electric typewriter. Now, when I tried turning it on, nothing moved. The keys were locked up. It did turn on and it had a hum inside of it. I couldn't move the carriage at all, and I determined pretty quickly that maybe it's the drive belt that went, because that seemed to work on the last machine I had. But I couldn't get into the typewriter. The screws were in there so tight that there was no way I could get that bottom off of the machine. So I did the only logical thing I could think of. I set it upside down and then forgot about it for a really long time. I then went back in once I got the confidence to go into this machine and decided to try adding some sort of lubricant to those screws that were stuck in there so tight to see if that would help loosen them up. I use WD-40. Now, don't use WD-40 to clean your machines, but if you're trying to loosen a screw, it's pretty effective. So I threw some WD-40 onto those screws, I let it sit for a little bit, and then I was able to remove those screws and the bottom of this typewriter. Now, once I opened it, I was confronted with a very sticky and grossly corroded drive belt on the inside of this machine. And once again, that was the only thing that was wrong inside of this typewriter to the naked eye. So I went back into my stash of rubber O-rings, because you always need those, and I was able to replace it with the exact same size that I had used on the Olympia electric typewriter. And bada bing, bada boom, that typewriter worked immediately. I did some extra cleaning on this machine just to get out the rubber pieces that were super corroded on the inside of this typewriter, but with a little bit of a clean and that new drive belt, the typewriter worked perfectly. Now, the problem I ran into when trying to put this back together was that in the process of trying to dislodge some of those screws, it actually kind of really messed up the top of them. These were Phillips head screws, which are the cross ones, not the flat single ones. If you look at some typewriters that were made in the US or even Europe in the 1950s and 60s, they all have a flat head screwdriver head to all of their screws, but machines made in Japan, especially in the late 70s and throughout the 80s, all have Phillips head screw tops. And those can be kind of difficult to work with. It's really easy to mess them up. So what I ended up doing was taking the screws that I had messed up pretty badly, and I used a saw to just make the one edge of that Phillips head a little bit deeper so that I could then use a flat top screwdriver in there to remove that screw the next time. That way, when I put that screw back in there, I could remove it later just using a flat head screwdriver instead of a Phillips. Now, this was a little bit of a ratchet job, but it did the trick. And with that, I had a working electric typewriter. Now, this trick doesn't work for every machine out there. There are some electric typewriters that do take a different kind of drive belt, specifically ones that have like little edges on them. They're more like a textured band. They've got little teeth that connect to the internal mechanisms inside that machine. But I was lucky enough that both of the typewriters I've repaired have a smooth drive belt on them, and O-rings work great for that. In fact, these are the ones I picked up. Don't you dare fall. What are you doing? Oh my God, you're a little acrobat. These are the ones I picked up, and these were 3 3/4 by 4 by 1/8. They're little quality replacements. I think these are actually for like a fridge or a water filter, but they work great on typewriters, and I'll link those down below. So that was my experience fixing an electric typewriter. Now, I can't really fix anything else on an electric typewriter. That's the only thing I know, but it is a quick little trick that makes an electric typewriter seem a little less intimidating. To know that that's usually the thing that goes wrong, and it's a good place to start when you're repairing an electric typewriter, is really helpful. It makes the process a little bit less daunting. If you're interested in more typewriter content, there are more videos on this YouTube channel, and I also have an Instagram at just.my.typewriter. I want to thank you all so much for watching today, and remind you that you're just my typewriter. Now, electric typewriters are incredibly intimidating to me. I think that they can be really interesting machines. That's my seat. Excuse me. That's my seat. That's my seat. I was sitting there.